Welcome to EduRev.
Hello and welcome to EduRev. My name is Harshmeet Singh and I welcome you all to the next lecture of our continuing topic, which is making of the Indian Constitution. In the last two lectures, we have discussed how the Constituent Assembly of India was formed. What was it that Muslim League and the princely states did not find good, because of which they boycotted the assembly, and other things about the assembly. Moving on, we will now look deeper into how India and Pakistan's partition happened and what changes it did bring into the Constituent Assembly. As I have told you earlier also multiple times, that Pakistan and India were divided officially as per the Mountbatten Plan. Now, Mountbatten Plan was announced on 3rd of June 1947. Interestingly, it was also called the Balkan Plan. इसको Balkan Plan भी कहा जाता था. Why? See, Balkan is a word that is used for dividing countries into smaller countries. In Europe, the countries were divided into smaller parts, the Balkan nations specifically. वहाँ से term बना Balkanization. So it was also called the Balkan Plan. 3rd June 1947 को announce हुआ that India and Pakistan would be separate. As you know, there were two Pakistan that were created. This was West Pakistan, this was East Pakistan. East Pakistan, which is today's Bangladesh. Now, अब जब पाकिस्तान बन गया, so it is very obvious that the members of India's Constituent Assembly, जो यहाँ से आएंगे इस area से, obviously they don't have to be in the assembly. So the members of our Constituent Assembly who came from the area of East Pakistan or West Pakistan, they have no business being here. So अब यहाँ पे क्या हुआ? After the partition happened, so majorly there were two states of India that were divided. There was Bengal in the eastern side and Punjab on the western side. So India में Pakistan बनाने के लिए Bengal and Punjab were partitioned. Now after the partition, obviously Punjab and Bengal, their strength in our Constituent Assembly got reduced. So पंजाब और बंगाल में जो बचे हुए एरियाज थे इंडिया में, वहाँ दोबारा इलेक्शन हुआ फॉर द कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली. हमारी कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली में बचे हुए एरियाज में से पंजाब और बंगाल में से कौन आएगा, दैट वाज डिसाइडेड विद अ री इलेक्शन. ओके, दैट इज व्हाई देयर वाज अ स्मॉल ब्रेक इन द प्रोसीडिंग्स ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली. Also, when Pakistan was created, it was very obvious that the strength of the assembly had to be reduced. जो हम लोग की असेंबली की स्ट्रेंथ है उसको हमें कम करना था. सो दैट इज व्हाई द असेंबलीज स्ट्रेंथ, व्हिच वाज ओरिजिनली 389 इफ यू रिमेंबर, वाज रिड्यूस्ड टू 299. 90 मेंबर्स की स्ट्रेंथ कम कर ली गई बिकॉज दे केम फ्रॉम दीज एरियाज ऑफ पाकिस्तान एंड बांग्लादेश. तो वो एरियाज वहां पे चले गए थे एंड दैट इज व्हाई द स्ट्रेंथ वाज रिड्यूस्ड. नाउ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली डिड अ लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स. उन्होंने केवल कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन नहीं बनाया था, they also adopted the national flag of India, the national anthem, national song, and a lot of other things. As I said in the beginning, मैं last lecture में discuss किया था that when the assembly started to function, Muslim League and princely states, ये दोनों ने assembly को boycott कर दिया था. They did not come to the assembly for their own reasons. Obviously, Muslim League wanted Pakistan, जो उनको मिला नहीं था. Princely states were not happy because they thought Congress was dominating. But slowly but surely, one by one, the members were coming in. In fact, some of the very few princely states who came in were Jaisalmer, Bikaner, because they were the ones who were at border with Pakistan, so they were not really secure. और क्योंकि वो पाकिस्तान से border पे थे, तो उनको ज़्यादा डर लग रहा था that we should be a part of India, तभी इंडिया हमें defend करेगा. That is why it started with princely states in Rajasthan, and then other princely states also started coming in. But last दिन तक new members just were coming into the assembly. However, there was one princely state जहाँ से last तक कोई नहीं आया था, that was Hyderabad. Hyderabad is a princely state which was ruled by Nizam. वहाँ से कोई भी नहीं आया था. Why? Because Hyderabad was adamant that we want to remain independent or we want to be a part of Pakistan. So they wanted to remain independent. उसकी काफ़ी सारी stories भी हैं. In fact, they had given a lot of money to Pakistan to buy weapons from Pakistan. It is said that they were even in talks with Portugal to buy Goa. Just imagine. They wanted to buy Goa so that they can have a seaport and they could communicate with Pakistan. And why was it possible? Because the Nizam of Hyderabad was one of the richest people in the entire world at that time. So he could afford a lot of fancy things. So Hyderabad did not send any representative in the assembly till the end. Hyderabad, in fact, was made a part of India much later on. As I said, the assembly did a lot of things apart from making the constitution. Now, remember the fact that after we became independent, we were not bound to remain a member of the Commonwealth. Commonwealth क्या होता है? Commonwealth is a group of nations which were once under the British Empire. So the nations which were ruled by the British, at least ones, Australia, Canada, South Africa, India, these are all called the Commonwealth. So we were given a chance. If we want to remain a part of Commonwealth, you can officially be a part of Commonwealth or you can come out of it. We chose to be a part of the Commonwealth. Although that does not mean that we have to abide by what the British are saying or we do not accept the authority of the British Queen. Apart from that, the Assembly also elected Dr. Rajendra Prasad as the first President of India. Remember this information, it's pretty crucial. The first President of India, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, was not elected in a manner as we elect our presidents today. Today, for the President, we have MPs and MLAs, both these set of people vote. But at that time, the very first President of India, in his election, the states had no role to play. It was just the Constituent Assembly. Amongst themselves, these members elected Dr. Rajendra Prasad as the first President. There's also a very funny story here as well. You can read about it later on, that there was a tussle between Nehru and Dr. Vallabhbhai Patel as to who should be the President of India. There was Dr. Rajendra Prasad and there was C. Rajagopalachari. But in the end, it was Dr. Rajendra Prasad who prevailed. The Constituent Assembly did not just make constitution without asking anyone. There were 3 readings that were made. So the first draft was prepared on 4th November 1948 itself. This was then opened to public. People were asked for their feedback. After the feedback, there were a lot of changes that were made. Then came the second reading, and finally the third and the last reading was done and completed on 26 November 1949. This is the day on which the Constitution was declared as adopted. This is the day that is mentioned in our preamble as well. However, the Constitution did not come into effect on this date. Remember this. The Constitution came into effect 2 months later on 26 Jan 1950. And why did we wait for 2 months? Because on 26 Jan 1930, that is 20 years back, the Indian National Congress had celebrated the Purna Swaraj Day. So our first Independence Day was celebrated on 26 Jan 1930, and to commemorate that day, we decided that we will have our Constitution come into force on 26 Jan itself. However, remember there were some features of the Constitution that came into force on 26 November itself. Features such as citizenship, elections, etc. In fact, a list of articles is given which came into force on 26 November itself. That list of articles in itself is in Article 394. So remember the fact, Article 394 contains a list of those articles that came into force on 26 November itself. But most part of the Constitution came into force only 2 months later, that is on 26 Jan 1950. Now, here's a very simple question for you, if you can just go through it. Which of these states did not send any representatives to the Constituent Assembly till the very end? We have just discussed it was Hyderabad. I hope you remember this important part of information. Thank you so much for watching the video.